Now, one time I was speaking to a group of medical doctors, and we were in a room like this, and I was speaking about near-death experiences to medical doctors, and there was a woman down here in front who was a professor at the University of Illinois Medical School. And she said to me during the afternoon, I was doing a bunch of things that weekend with these medical doctors, and we had a break in the afternoon, and she walked past me, and I was reading a book outside, and she walked past me, and she said, I don't know what you're going to do in that near-death lecture tonight, but I just can't even imagine that you're going to have some evidence for life after death that we're going to be able to say, yeah, this is good evidence. Well, I said, yeah, wait and see. I'll be glad to hear what you have to say. So we were given this lecture, and she told me later she had absolutely no response to these evidential cases. But when I was done, there was a woman over here on this side of the room, and she was the wife of ear, nose, and throat specialist. This happened in Wisconsin, but interestingly enough, her husband was a Stanford grad, ear, nose, and throat. And she raised her hand at the end of my lecture, and she said, I've been to heaven. Now, standing from my viewpoint, you have to see these medical doctors, and everybody in the room, they turn and they look over at her. And the woman down here in front from University of Illinois Medical School kind of yells across the room and says, just don't sit there. Tell us about it. And this woman said, I was delivering my third child. I don't know what the reason is, but I have a number of, probably a half dozen cases, childbirth stories. And she was delivering the third child, and she said, you know, I reached a tough time in the delivery, and I was in a crisis, and I zipped away to heaven. No evidence. She zipped away to heaven. And I said to the group, I said, all right, listen, I'll do a quick little interview with her, and let me show you what an interview with a near-death patient looks like. And I had never talked to her about this before. So I started asking her questions. Was there a boundary? Yep, there was a stream, and I couldn't go past the stream. I said, oh, yeah? Well, what did it look like? And here's how near-death patients typically describe what they call, you know, heaven or whatever this beautiful place is that they are. They'll say like this. They'll say, well, I was in this most incredible place, and the colors, oh, I wished I could, the colors were like, no, I can't do it, because when you think I mean colors, you're thinking about colors like here, but this isn't it. This is color you could like walk into, and you could touch color, and you could, no, I know I'm not doing a good job. And the music, it's the most incredible music I ever heard. No, because see, when I say music, you're thinking about the Beatles or something, and I'm just, no, never mind, I'm not doing a very good job. And this is called ineffability, the inability to, so they're talking about colors and music. And she said, I just really enjoyed it. I wanted to get past that river, and they wouldn't let me go. I said, okay, let me ask you in front of the whole group. I said, you just delivered your third child. Yes. I said, I've always heard it said that the strongest biological bond in the universe is between a mother and her child. And she said, okay, I'll grant that. I said, for the sake of this group, tell me something. Did you want to stay, or did you want to come back? And she kind of looked down a little bit, and she said, I didn't want to come back. And she elbowed her husband kind of playfully, and she said, he can raise the kids. And I said, okay, let me ask you again. You're the mother of your third child. You're close to these kids. It's a newborn. You haven't had any time with this child, and you would rather stay there. She said, absolutely. I said, let me ask you something. Are you afraid to die? And she said, look, I'm not hoping it's going to happen to me today or something. But she said, I'll tell you what. I'm looking forward to it. Yes, I'm looking forward to it. I have absolutely no fear. Now, when you hear some people talking like that, I can't say, well, how many points of evidence did you have? You know, some of them, the Atlanta housewife, she wanted to go beyond that point too, and her uncle wouldn't let her go. But I'm saying, in closing, that some of these people, their experience is more interesting sometimes than the black and white sort of answers they can give. And when you say, well, tell me this or that, and you walk away, you've got that evidence down there that you can check out. But it doesn't affect you the same way the look in their eye or their words has more of an effect on you. And I'll say, sort of like a dream, huh? And they'll say, dream. I am more sure that I was there than when I went to the supermarket today to get a Coke. I am more sure I was there. It's the most real experience I've ever had. Now, in cases where people have data, that's even more interesting. Well, I'm going to leave you with this and see if you have some questions. I can tell you this is quite an interdisciplinary project too. There are near-death studies from China, from India, from England. They are very similar in a lot of respects. I know of a study, 600 largely Hindus in India with near-death phenomena. I know there's a couple of studies in Chinese culture, one of them among Buddhists. So, pretty interesting. Okay, questions, comments? Yes. Well, in the Hindu study, the Buddhist study was pretty small compared to the Hindu one. The Hindu study had 600, so it's good size. The conclusion of the two psychologists who did the investigation is that the Hindu, some of the reports are undoubtedly sociological. For example, Hindus reported seeing more. They thought people they saw, these persons that they would say, like, in heaven or whatever, or wherever they thought they saw them, they report more religious persons, whereas Westerners report more people. My aunt. Americans see more women than men. It's something like 60-40 or 55-45. But the Hindus saw very few women. And you could argue that's part of their culture, that kind of stuff. And here's one of the more interesting things. There were more negative experiences with the Indian cases. I say Indian, from India cases, whatever their religion. There were more negative cases. In a lot of the cases, there were cases they came to call takeaway experiences, where the person would tell a doctor, the angel of death visited me today, and I'm going to die tonight. And the doctor said, nonsense. You're doing fine. We're going to have you out of here in a couple of days. I said, no, I'm going to die tonight. And they died that evening. There are a number of those cases. There are some where the patient would jump out of bed and crawl under the bed or in the closet because they were afraid, and they said the angel of death was trying to take them. Those are just some generalities. But I do know that the two psychologists who did the study, I talked to one of them about the study, and they know the drug history of these people. They know what they had. They have the medical records, and they could check that against those kind of theories. It's just a drug-induced hallucination or something like that. Yes, in the back.